Um, he was under a bit of scrutiny again at sort of the tail end of this season when he came back to New South Wales. Are you hoping now that sort of, I guess, he finds a tempo that works for him consistently now at first class cricket? I guess now that way it started for him is sort of out of the way.
Yeah, I think we want everyone to find a tempo that works for them or find out how they have success. Clearly, he's young. We know that he's at the start of a journey. It looks like, and hopefully, it's a very exciting journey. And it's there's a half eye to the future there, but we think he's got a bright future, and think that there's a level of talent that could
Sorry, guys. Looks like we've got a little bit of a Wi-Fi glitch there. Oh, George,
Yeah.
I think you're back now, mate.
Oh, cool. I'll just ask one sort of follow up to that. Now, were you involved in any sort of chats with Sam in the latter part of that season when it just looked like he was trying to sort of work things out again a little bit?
No, very much leave that to others. I know that Greg Shippard was communicating with Andrew McDonald. I know he's got plenty of people that he relies on to chat to around that. Very much invested in and love looking at the journey and how he's working it out. But no conversations from my end.
Thanks, George.
Andrew Menzel.
G'day, George. I was just wondering what the reasoning was for Aaron Hardy dropping off the contract list this year.
Yeah, well, I think all three guys that dropped off, Aaron, Sean Abbott and Todd Murphy, are all in some ways stiff. I think that the balance of trying to get the list right with a balance of skill sets across it, trying to reward some past performance, but also with a view to what you may have coming up, with the balance of whatever formats are coming. So clearly we've got a T20 World Cup year. There's Test cricket's always a very high priority. I think there's only 6 one-days for the next 12 months for us. So I'm just trying to fit all that in. But I think collectively those three, the messaging's been pretty consistent that they're, despite not getting a contract, they are still valued, and they haven't necessarily dropped in specific formats in a pecking order, if you'd like to call it that. But it's just trying to fit everyone in. But I certainly think those three and probably a couple of others, as we have seen in the past, and particularly when there are heavy T20 years, are every chance to be involved in squads and games throughout the next 12 months.
Louis.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Colin. Thanks for jumping on, George. Just with Sam, like this, do you kind of go back to looking at the World Test Championship final? Do you look back at the summer and kind of go, well, yeah, he finished as the Test opening incumbent, or does what happened in Sri Lanka where he obviously was left out for conditions? Does that kind of supersede it? Where does that kind of all sit, picking that team?
Looking ahead to the World Test Championship team.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I didn't phrase that very well, mate, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I thought someone would. First and foremost, we've got some time around that. We've got Cam Green returning, and hopefully that continues to track well. And he's going to head to England and play a little bit of cricket in the lead up to that. Along with Sam, I think we've also seen Bo Webster, Josh Inglis perform really well when they've had opportunities as well. So we'll work through that over the coming month. We've got a lot of guys playing cricket in India. We've got an extended squad and some guys that will be prepping and doing a bit of work here in Australia, and with some camps in Brisbane in the lead up to that as well. So we've got options. I think the one thing I will say about that is that, and the way we've sort of viewed the World Test Championships that we've been involved in, is that they're one-off games. They're quite specific to that, and obviously in England in those conditions. So the way we frame that and potentially look at how we structure up that team may be different to then that flows directly into the West Indies Test tour. That may look different.
And can I just ask you about Matt Koeman as well? Like what you've made of the last couple of months for him. You know, it's just been a real roller coaster for him. And is him kind of being in this group, like, is it purely a test that he's the number 2 test guy, or do you think he could play other formats as well?
Yeah, I think he can play other formats. I think the contract side of things is probably a lens to where he sits in our eyes at the moment. In that red ball space, he's done incredibly well. He's shown an incredible amount of resilience. I think obviously performing as well as he did in Sri Lanka, and then having the scrutiny around his action and having to go through that process to bouncing back and finishing the year really well with Tassie. So. Again, looking at what's coming up and where we don't have any subcontinent tours, but we think his skill set could be useful in the West Indies. Just again, without someone who's had a whole heap of international exposure, we've been really pleased with the way he's performed when he's got his opportunities.
Dan.
G'day, George. Just one about the sort of like the back end of the domestic season and the start of the IPL. That seems to be getting kind of earlier and earlier. Like, how do you, I guess, navigate that when I suppose you do want to have a look at guys in red ball cricket and you've only got 10 Shield rounds to choose from across a season?
I think that it's been pretty consistent with the IPL over a number of years now. That almost takes precedence. I think that seems to be the global view as well. I still think there's plenty of opportunities for red ball cricket, and we see guys getting enough of that or lots of it at different stages throughout the year.
Thank you.
Ollie.
Hey, George, just with Usman on the contracted list, you must feel like he still has a fair bit of good cricket left in him, and at least until the end of the Ashes.
I mean, looking at his, I think he's been on record as saying it was a tough summer in Australia, and I don't think he was the only batsman to find that. But I think his form again in Sri Lanka was fantastic. He's been incredibly consistent for us. At the top of the order. I don't think we've necessarily had a conversation, and I know he's been pretty public in saying that he doesn't necessarily like to look too far forward and have an end date on it. And I don't think necessarily we get as excited about the age of a player versus how they're performing and clearly what's coming up. So at the moment and certainly on the back of the last. However long he's been back in that Australian side, opening the bat, he's been fantastic.
We've got Jake Patrick. I'm not sure which outlet you're from, Jake.
Thanks, guys. Jake from 6PR Radio in Perth here. George, just could you talk us through Mitch Marsh and where he's at with his cricket at the moment? He's got another contract with you guys. He missed the back end of the Shield season with for family reasons. Out of form a little bit too over the summer. Where do you see his cricket, and what sort of role do you see him playing for Australia going forward this year?
I still think he's got an incredibly important role to play. He's had some injury issues, and towards the back end of the summer, he was battling with his back a little bit. It's an ongoing conversation as to where bowling may or may not fit into his international cricket going forward. At the moment, I think in the IPL he's available only as a batter. But still the captain of our T20 team. Still think he can play an incredibly important role in setting that team up and hopefully leading that team to some success in the T20 World Cup. I think he's got plenty of one-day cricket left in him as well. So I still think he's a really valuable member of the white ball sides, and and I don't necessarily think that his red ball career is over as well. I don't think he was scoring the runs that he would have wanted or we would have wanted when we left him out of the Test side. But I still think there's a incredibly exciting skill set there with the bat, the way he can rip a game open. If you look ahead to a team like England and the way they play their cricket and the way they seem to be framing up their team, I think he's got a skill set there that could be helpful as well.
We'll go over to Pete Lawler.
One from left of field, George. Where's Curtis Patterson? We had him on the podcast yesterday and spoke to him. See, he come back in, worked his way back into the conversation. It's an extraordinary journey he's had lately.
Yeah, it is great to see, isn't it? That I've enjoyed that. From afar, particularly, I guess someone who almost fell out of love a little bit with the game, or maybe lost the perspective of the why and how he was going to play his best cricket. So to see him come back and perform as well as he has for New South Wales, he had some CA11 opportunities as well. He'll get some opportunities through the winter as well with some Australia A stuff versus Sri Lanka. So yeah, it's been a nice second coming, a nice re-emergence. I don't think anyone's ever doubted that there's a quality, that he's a quality cricketer. But to see him performing and back helping New South Wales win some games of cricket's been great.
Thank you.
Alex Malcolm.
Thanks, Cole. Good day, George. Quick one on Cooper Connolly. He was in your last Test 11, your last ODI 11, played a couple of T20s during the last 12 months. Would have played more maybe if he didn't break his hand. Where does he sit in your calculations, given he's not on this list? And how did you view how he went over the last couple of months?
I think it's been a really exciting 8 months for him. Going back to being picked on the UK white ball tour right through the summer, to have debuted across all three formats. I think he's an incredibly exciting talent. He's probably in the same boat a little bit as the three guys that we mentioned, has been unlucky in not getting contracts. In that, I think he's certainly going to be around conversations for squads and tours and games throughout the next 12 months. But just as ever, it's a challenge to fit everyone on, but not to say that still not incredibly excited about what he's achieved over the last 12 months and where we think that career and his cricket can continue to develop.
And just on managing the next sort of phase, you mentioned I think there's upwards of 16 or 19 T20Is plus a World Cup this year. How do you manage selecting a contract list with that many T20s, given what maybe happened around the UK tour with so many injuries and managing guys coming in and out? How hard was that for you to weigh up what your priorities were for this coming year?
Yeah, it's always an important focus. I mean, I think Test cricket is always a really big priority. Despite only having the 6 one-dayers this year, that leads into an ODI World Cup towards the back end of 2027 as well. So we'll certainly be using those one-day games to continue and to start to focus on what that squad might start to look like by 2027. I think anytime we've had a T20 World Cup and those big years of bunches of games, we've used a broad range of players. I envisage it'll probably be similar this year, just depending where we end up on the back of, I think the West Indies T20s come on the back of the 4 Test matches, if you include the World Test Championship, and some other, I think there's some Indian T20s at the start of the summer, again, just depending where a few guys are in terms of their prep for Test cricket. So there's every reason to think that there'll be opportunities for plenty of players who may be just outside this contract list.
Thanks, mate.
2 left here, guys. Jackson Barrett.
Thanks, Cole. G'day, George. Just wanted to ask about Jai Richardson and Lance Morris, obviously 2 quicks that have been managed pretty closely over the last 12, 18, 24 months. Is this an indication that they're still in your plans for red ball cricket and the Ashes?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think it's no secret that the bowling group, the Test bowling group, will undergo a little bit of transition. I think over the next period, we when we've seen them at their best and getting an extended run at red ball cricket, they have pretty exciting skill sets. But they've both had very different, but some setbacks and some challenges along the way. And I think getting your body right to be robust enough to be a consistent candidate for Test cricket is a challenge. But we're invested in that journey. When they are up and going, we like what they can provide, and certainly. Feel like we have invested in that, and that journey's ongoing, and hopefully both of them can be in the mix for for Test positions come this summer as well.
Thanks, Matt.
Back to Dan for one last question. Dan.
Thank you. George, just one more on that, I suppose, the white ball circuit around the world. I know there's those South Africa white ball games that are on at the same time as the 100 in the UK later this year. Like, how do you navigate that as selectors when, I guess, players are getting offers to play pretty much constantly in franchise tournaments versus, I suppose, the fact that you obviously want the national team to take precedence?
Yeah, you do. I guess that's one of the opportunities or advantages of a central contract is you get the opportunity to sit down with a player and have a look at what the next 12 or 18 months looks like and build out a bit of a plan. I think for the most part, our players, when selected, are still very, very happy and very content to play international cricket and represent their country. Again, particularly depending on where the cycle is, but for those top end T20s in the build up towards the World Cup will be really important. So I think it's a growing challenge across the cricketing landscape to balance that the lure of franchise cricket versus international cricket. But it's something we're conscious of, working really hard to ensure that players have a clear plan, and hopefully you're creating an environment, and hopefully they're still enjoying playing international cricket enough, and there's enough lure and pride in that's something that they want to continue because they're enjoying it and they're getting some good success. I also think that if you look around those franchise the franchise landscape, you as a player, your best path to earning big contracts and being consistent, and that is by performing really well for your country. So it's a win-win if they're playing well for Australia.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thanks everyone for joining today, and we'll catch up with everyone next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.